one very prominent issue that has faced seafarers lately is that of abandonment and then welfare issues as well. We also the COVID problem that came, and the impacts are still there. And seafarers have complained that they have been feeling the heat so much. I know you're a ship owner, and it's like on the other side of the divide, but
I used to be a seafarer myself.
Good, that's why I'm asking. You're a captain. So for you, what really are the best ways for us to get a balance in situations like this?
Well, first of all, let us acknowledge the Day of the Seafarer. You know, it's a day for us actually to reflect upon the sacrifices that seafarers make in ensuring that ships run, because without ships, maritime commerce and the world economy would absolutely be adversely impacted. So for those who dedicate their lives to operating the ships, to make sure that goods are delivered, to make sure that raw materials are imported, we really have got to applaud them. We also recognize the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the lives of seafarers, because seafarers lead their lives on the go. They are constantly moving in ships. When they are not moving in ships, they are packing their bags and transferring from one port to another. And so when you have a pandemic, which no one can say that they have prior experience of, and they cannot tell you, this is how we dealt with it the last time, then it creates huge challenges in terms of what people will do. How would you change seafarers? Because seafarers don't have to reside on the ship for an indefinite period of time. They are there for a specific time, and they are supposed to go into port. They're supposed to change. But now we have protocols that actually effectively restricts people from moving. So it has created great difficulties. We hear terms like abandonment, but I really can't imagine that anybody would deliberately want to abandon seafarers and to say, well, the devil take the hindmost. No, that's not the case at all. People were absolutely trapped. People didn't know what to do. And I'm just happy that by the grace of God, we now seem to have a panacea for this absolutely horrible pandemic by way of inoculations that people are taking. And also the numbers are going down and the deaths are absolutely scrolling down. So it might well be the case that in the very near future, we would now be seeing normalcy. Seafarers can once again do the job that they have traditionally done, supporting world commerce and supporting the well-being of the people of the world.
Okay, that's great. Now let's move back home to the Deep Blue project that NIMASA just inaugurated the other day. How, in your view, do you think this will boost the maritime activities in the Gulf, in Nigeria and in the Gulf of Guinea?
Yeah, I mean, basically what it is that Nigeria has gone a step further than most nations in terms of setting up a budget, in terms of making provisions for combating some of the maritime terrorism that we have heard about, you know, piracy, armed robbery at sea, hijacking of ships and all of those things. I think that the fact that Nigeria has done that, and once the news travels and people now understand that Nigeria is making a very serious investment and a very serious effort to sanitize the circumstances of the maritime trade in Nigeria, then people will have greater confidence in being able to send their ships over here. And one benefit which we expect that we will get is the issue of the war premium, because it's really very controversial. People have asked in the past if the war premium is really worth it, or if this is really a ruse to charge Nigerians and Nigerian consumers more money than they should be paying for the goods that they are importing or exporting. So once we have made these investments, we can now point to it and say, well, you did declare Nigeria a warlike area. We have invested in aircrafts, we have invested in ships, we have invested in helicopters, we have invested in personnel and processes, and we hope that this would make it safer for trading vessels to come in and out of Nigerian waters. And for that reason, there is absolutely no need for you to continue to charge this war premium, because in the final analysis, whatever charges are imposed will be borne by the consumer of the goods. The cost do not stay with the interim transporter. It goes to the person who eventually takes delivery of the goods, because you would have to tally all the costs that you have incurred and then pass it on to the person who consumes the goods.
Okay, that's fine. Now, I want to take you back to an event that took place recently when a book was launched, and at the heart of that book was the issue of the liquidation of the NNSL. Just give us a brief of what you think, because you said something. Just share with us what you think that has done or is still doing in shipping in Nigeria.
All right. First and foremost, we have always advocated a situation where Nigerians will participate more fully in the lifting of trade goods, both imports and exports. We have always said that it's not good enough for us to have raw materials that will bring to, for instance, if we are talking about crude oil, we'll bring it to the tip of the pipeline, and we allow that ships belonging to parties elsewhere, foreign flag vessels, will come in and load the oil, add value to it by transporting it from here to the foreign refineries. That value addition process actually creates jobs, creates profit opportunities for the owners of those ships. And we have always advocated a situation where we would seek to do better than we are doing currently. Rather than collecting the FOB value of the goods, we'll collect it, and we'll collect part of the transportation costs. We collect part of the benefits in terms of jobs that are created on ships that carry those goods. And lately, we have also decided that it would be a great idea for Nigerians to participate in the refining of those crude oil that we produce. So we will refine it, we will make profit there, we will get transfer of technology, we will now also bring the products on Nigerian-owned ships. Wow. So that was why the NNSL was established. I think it was about 1958. The only problem was that NNSL was established under public sector ownership. And you know that everybody's business is nobody's business. What belongs to everybody doesn't belong to anyone. And so, in my own personal experience, and I was there, why the NNSL did not thrive was that it wasn't really run as a strictly commercial operation. It was quasi-commercial and quasi-government. So the sort of emphasis that was placed in the management function was emphasis on the technical side of things, repairing ships, supplying victuals to ships, putting people in places on ships. But in terms of actually an effort to ensure a counterbalance of income by way of the cargo that is carried in relation to the costs that are incurred, that really wasn't given the sort of a primacy that it deserved. And so at all times, nearly at all times, the operation was cash-strapped, and after some time we became indebted. After some time we suffered the indignity of those vessels being arrested for not being able to pay their way through. So these are the things that were captured in the book that Dr. Chilaka wrote. You know, there are also other very important things that really would ensure that anybody who was involved in the business of producing shipping services would either survive or fail. For instance, the impact of technology on costs. So at a point in time, the shape of the vessel was critical in determining how much cargo was carried on board the ships. But at a time, the way of packaging cargoes changed. And instead of putting cargoes inside ships directly, we put them in a box. Containerize them.
Yeah.
And you understand that if you have a ship that is a triangular shape, and you put something in a box that is not a triangle, but it's a box,
it won't fit.
It wouldn't fit because there would be holes all over the place. And so that was one of the things that really impacted negatively on the NNSL's profitability. When you had vessels that were not box-shaped, trying to carry boxes. And I remember clearly, and I can actually quote numbers for you. A ship, NNSL class ships, the 14,000 tonners. I did a study once to find out how they compared with foreign ships of equal size, the same length, the same depth, the same breadth in terms of cargo carrying capabilities. And whilst the NNSL vessels were able to carry as much as 252 TEUs, containers, a similar vessel in length, breadth, and depth was able to carry 737 boxes. So if you look at it simply on the basis of the numbers of containers carried, this is carrying about 3 times and will earn about 3 times the revenue. That's one example. Another example that you would wish to look into would be, what kind of engines are fitted in the ships? Did you actually specify the engines? Because engines come in different sizes and have different efficiencies.
Yeah.
So if you had an engine that was really what we call a gas guzzler, and they would be, you would need about 28 tons of a heavy fuel oil to propel it in one day's steaming, as compared to a vessel that doesn't move so fast, but also does not consume so much fuel. You would take all those things into account and balance them, so that at the end of the day, your costs will be manageable, more manageable.
Yeah.
So these are some of the factors that were not really taken into account when NNSL bought those vessels. They bought them, the ships were wrong, the engines were huge, but they continued to run them, and they continued to spend more money than they were earning.
Wow.
When the NNSL went down, we ought to have learned from that experience, say, why did it go down? This is a post-mortem. We will never again do it, but we didn't. We went out and bought another ship. It was a small, how would I say it, a small vessel which you couldn't even trade as a liner vessel because it was a single thing. It was a single ship. It wasn't a fleet of ships. And we tried to run it under NUL. It failed again. So when the people started talking about another national carrier, I said, don't we get tired? We must sit down and say, what happened before we go forward again?
Now, looking at that, the fact that the NNSL was able to help give sea time to cadets that were trained at the academy in Oron, what would you advise? Because I know that a key aspect of that book, or reviews rather, from people like you and other captains, was that lessons had been learned. From those lessons, what would you advise as a way forward? Should Nigeria decide on re-establishing a national fleet?
Well, you see, I'm glad that you used the word national fleet, because there is a misunderstanding there. What's a national fleet? It's a fleet that flies the Nigerian flag. So then, a Nigerian flag fleet, a national fleet, we're going to establish a national fleet. What does it mean? There has been a controversy as to what that means. People are saying a national fleet means it's owned under government ownership. No, a national fleet is any fleet that you have that is flying the Nigerian flag. But there's nothing special about a national fleet. A national fleet needs to be as efficient as a fleet that is under private sector but Nigerian flagged as well. So let us get the nomenclature correct. What we want is a Nigerian flag, Nigerian owned ship. You asked about the impact, because the fleet that we had that went down was used for training. And really we benefited from having trained the seafarers. But remember that having trained seafarers is not an end in itself. It is a means to an end, so that we have a fleet that we can man, that can provide services, that can create wealth. So every time people talk about Oron, Oron is a very good place, but they must try and see what it does all the way through. Because if you train to the point where somebody comes out and then there is no job, there is no sea time, what did you do all that training for? You must be able to foresee where those people are going to work. You must be able to have talks with people to say, if we produce these guys, we want you to be able to give them jobs. You must be able to say there's a quid pro quo for you to be able to operate down to our place here, look at some benefits, and you also must be able to help us in terms of taking our people on. So these are some of the considerations that must lie behind any decision for us to establish a Nigerian flag fleet in the future. We want to make sure that it is successful. It isn't one that there are discontinuities. It must be continuous all the way. People are trained. They have a batch where they can practice their profession. We have customers who will buy the shipping services that are produced. We have revenues that will be earned. And then the cycle just continues and continues to repeat. See, this issue about a sea time that people continue to talk about, I have told it to you before. The sea time that you require is sea time on a trading ship. There is no such a thing as sea time. Maybe Oron has a training vessel and you go on board the training vessel to go and acquire sea time. It doesn't work, because what you're doing is you're doing coastal navigation just to learn how to use all those equipment on board. But in terms of actually logging sea time, you have to be on a proper ship that is trading. And you serve your time on there.
Can you kindly give us an update on your modular refinery
project? My modular refinery project is on course.
Okay.
You know, we've been at it for well over 4 or 5 years now. What surprised us is the time that it has taken. But what we know is that we never sat back at any one time to say we are not working. We've been working continuously. So the way we answer any questions as to how long it's taking, that is the time that it takes to do these things.
I'm aware the DPR came
recently, yes, they came down to see exactly what we were doing. Now I'm sure, read reports of what they thought about what we were doing. There's so many things that are happening, you see, because whilst you are planning to build a refinery, rules and regulations change. And people cannot say, rules and regulations have changed, but don't worry about it, you're building a refinery, continue. No, you must factor in those changes into what you're doing. And so if it means going back to review your process design, you will do it, so that whenever your refinery comes on stream, it isn't obsolete from day one. So at this point in time, there are new regulations with regards to the contents of sulfur impurities in fuel oil. You must take that into account. And what that means actually for people who are in the business of trying to develop refineries is that it will cost you more to install the necessary equipment. In fact, there has been questions as to whether existing refineries, if they are retrofitted with some of those things, will they be competitive? So these are all questions that you really have to grapple with. And there also is a question that policymakers should be aware of, so that they know the difficulties that people encounter. But the major problems that Nigerians will have really is money to develop those refineries. They are very expensive. 20,000 barrels per day, some are doing 100,000 barrels per day. They are very expensive, and they really, you need somebody who has a very strong heart and has really great confidence in your capacity to lend you, or to offer to lend you that money. But it would also help if the government, knowing fully well that if Nigerians break into this business, would absolutely open up the Nigerian economy, if government could stand by them in terms of incentives that can be given, incentives in terms of the rate at which crude can be sold to people, availability of crude, the rates, currency in which it is sold, and also standing by them publicly to say, yes, we know these guys, we've really reviewed what they're doing, we know they're doing well, and you can support them. Just standing by them. So, oh, that's federal government standing, that's Capt. Iheanacho standing. That is absolutely going to be very helpful.
Okay. Let's kindly get your voice on this problem that seems not to go away so quickly. The Apapa roads, the gridlock is just ever there. And is it that we can't find a solution? But funny enough, when the president visited recently, the joker was that not a single truck was found on the road. Driving into Apapa that day was a smooth one. Sure. So,
well, that's to be expected. I mean, you understand what would have happened. You understand what would have happened if trucks had blocked the president. Heads will roll, all kinds of things will roll. So that's why it was easy for people to arrange it so that there was no problems. And another thing that you would know is that on that day, there was no movement of any commercial trucks. So we could lose the benefits of that productivity for those days. But as soon as Mr. President goes back to Abuja, then we are back to work. Again. But on a long-term basis, I think what it takes is planning. Planning for so many containers that will come in, planning for the rate at which the containers go out, planning for the possibility of building, and I've talked about this so many times, buying up properties along Creek Road, you know, all those obsolete properties, destroying it and building proper terminals, you know, planning for infrastructure in terms of additional roads. There's no reason why Liverpool Road cannot be extended through Ajegunle and to go straight to Mile 2. All of those type of planning and execution, of course.
Needed. Okay, thank you so much, Captain Iheanacho, for spending time to speak with us at the Marina today. It's been a wonderful time talking with Captain Emmanuel Iheanacho. He is the Chairman CEO of Integrated Oil and Gas Company Limited. Quite a number of issues there, but we hope indeed that the authorities concerned will look at them, consider them, and actually do the planning that will make all things work.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, it's really to the benefit of all Nigerians if we had a port system where it functioned purely as a port, as an interface between the ship and the shore. And it didn't function as a place where you bring and dump goods and keep them there for a long time. And the answer to all of this is prior planning. You've got to continue to plan. You've got to continue to scrutinize the system. You've got to continue to look at the trade statistics. What does the trend say? Is it growing? What was Tinkan Island like 50 years ago? Yeah. What is it like now? What is it going to be like in the next 50 years? Are there places along the coast in Nigeria where we can establish new ports so that we don't get caught? Say, we are struggling. No. We anticipated that this was going to happen, and then we built all those facilities. Yeah. With the long, very long coastline that we have, I dare say that we have lots and lots of places where we can develop additional port system.
Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.